The coronavirus has taken its toll on all manner of industries, but the world of sports was among the ones hit hardest and earliest, and perhaps most visibly. Just think back to the day you realized our lives were going to fundamentally change for a while. For many sports fans, this happened on the 9th of March. As he was leaving a media event, basketball player Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz touched every microphone and recorder in front of him in a gesture that he later apologized for, that was only meant to be a silly joke. Why did he apologize, you ask? Well, because the microphone incident happened 2 days prior to the NBA player testing positive for coronavirus. Following Gobert's positive test, the NBA suspended the rest of its season until further notice. And it wasn't just basketball vanishing suddenly. Since then, the NHL suspended its season, Major League Baseball pushed back its opening date to an unknown day, international soccer leagues suspended their games, and the Tokyo Olympics were moved to next summer. As shocking as these cancellations seemed at the time, the truth is there was really no other choice. Sporting events with large crowds packed together are the exact opposite of social distancing, and they're a nightmare scenario during a pandemic. But although sports shutting down was emphatically the right thing to do, people have increasingly been asking when they can return. The lack of sports is an emotional blow to a lot of people, and it's not just emotional, it's financial too. According to estimates, the sudden disappearance of sports will erase at least $12 billion in revenues and hundreds of thousands of jobs in the US alone. Those jobs are not just the high-paid athletes playing games. They also include the many people who count on sporting events for employment, like stadium workers. The sports world has been doing some truly great things during this pandemic. Teams and athletes have been donating and raising money for charity, with some even selling branded face masks. And despite not being able to play, teams have found ways to stay engaged with their fans online while practicing social distancing. Athletes have been showing how they're trying to work from home, which has not always been easy for them. For instance, the NBA MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo told reporters last month that he's been unable to practice because he doesn't have a hoop at his house. Others have had to get pretty creative to continue their training, whether it's an Olympic swimmer training in a kiddie pool with a bungee cord, or an Olympic runner creating a makeshift treadmill in a bathtub with the floor made slippery with shower gel. As for broadcasters who are reliant on live events, they are now in a truly desperate situation. Like ESPN, for example, who have been strapped for content and had to resort to airing video game versions of baseball and basketball. There is clearly a desire to restart sporting events. The question, though, isn't why sports should come back, but how that can safely happen. Because to do it responsibly would be a massive undertaking. Not everyone in the sports world, though, is willing to wait until things look safe again. The state of Florida, for example, designated professional sports and media production with a national audience as an essential service, so long as it's close to the general public. So the WWE has continued staging shows in Florida, holding matches with no spectators. However, that requires a lot more people than just 2 wrestlers. You need production crews working together in close proximity. And while the WWE maintains its safety measures are as comprehensive as they can possibly be, one employee wrote an anonymous complaint asking them to stop the filming of such matches because despite sanitary precautions, it was impossible to maintain social distancing and not to touch other people. Going back to the way things were before, completely without risk, is just not possible right now. And yet, many sports organizations are feeling a real pressure to ignore that risk. Especially college sports, where some schools' athletic programs rely heavily on revenue from football. Profit is a powerful motivator here, especially for some team owners who won't be the ones taking the risks. And that is why major sports like baseball and football are eagerly pursuing plans to come back. Several leading figures in the healthcare sector have been trying to devise plans for sports to come back safely. Among the most widely discussed proposals was the one made in mid-May by Anthony Fauci, America's highest-ranking specialist in infectious diseases. According to Dr. Fauci, the only way to guarantee safety from the coronavirus would be to play in an enclosed environment. Players, coaches, and the team's staff members would need to be sealed off in a bubble, insulated from the community, and tested with frequency. At first, the so-called bubble league plan might seem like a good idea. You isolate the teams and have them play in empty stadiums with no fans. Brilliant, except the situation is much more complicated than that, because of course, you wouldn't just be isolating players. You would be doing that for coaching staff, team doctors, trainers, bus drivers, camera crews, and hotel staff. It is estimated that even a bubble league would require constant testing and quarantine for just over 10,000 people, and that is just not feasible. The MLB's new idea, then, is to play an abbreviated season in as many empty home ballparks as possible. But here's the catch. Teams would still have to travel to those, meaning they're not being quarantined. For a sense of just how easy it is for something to go wrong, we can look at Germany. Germany has handled this pandemic better than many countries in Europe and overseas. And that enabled their soccer league to come back on the 16th of May, becoming Europe's first major league to resume after the 2-month shutdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. To be able to do so, the Bundesliga employed a kind of bubble league approach, without fans and with all teams quarantined in a hotel. However, since the restart of the season, 2 players have tested positive for coronavirus, thus forcing the rest of their team to quarantine for 14 days, and a head coach breached quarantine rules by leaving the hotel to buy toothpaste, and now he's unable to rejoin the team until he gets 2 negative tests. This goes to show just how difficult it is to do any of this effectively. There is no doubt that one of the things sports do best is to inspire, bring people together, and unite in times of crisis, like when the Yankees resumed playing after 9/11. Unfortunately, though, bringing people together is the exact thing we should be avoiding right now. And while sports was genuinely helpful at the start of this crisis in showing us just how serious this virus was, if it comes back too soon and irresponsibly, it won't be an inspiration, but a cautionary tale. So as hard as it is to hear, we might need a little more time to make sure that we get this right, phasing sports back in slowly and with tailored approaches that take into account each sport's level of contact and robust systems of testing and tracing. Without all this, the efforts made by each and every one of us to stay indoors as much as possible, follow the rules, and maintain social distancing will all have been in vain. Thank you.